Chairman. Dr. Dickman, let's go back to you for just a second. You referenced the MAGE and the CAGE, the multiplex automated genomic engineering and the computer-aided on your research. It's certainly my belief, and I think the belief of many of us, that world security is the food scarcity or having food security for an underdeveloped nation. And I think one of the criteria for being an underdeveloped nation is that you simply can't provide enough food for your people. So, in my opinion, this is another piece of the pie that we fight world terrorism with, that we're able to feed the people that can actually do some good and do some good things. So I guess the question is, how far in your crystal ball are we away from really getting there to some of these underdeveloped nations of these technologies where you can potentially grow wheat in the middle of the desert, or you can increase yields by 5 to 10%. Where are we in the timeline there?
Well, it depends if the glass is half full or the half empty.
Right.
Certainly there are a lot of positive progresses that are being made in developing countries, but it's a complex, it's not a cop-out, but it's a complex issue. There's a lot of politics involved, and while the growers generally support these kinds of plans and routes to food production, they're often hampered by politicians and people with other interests. So the hurdles to overcome, depending on the country you're talking to, are considerable. But I might add, but it can be done. I mean, bananas, to use something I know a little bit about, are now in human field trials, actually in Iowa, with the hope that the hoops have gone through sufficiently to put them out in a humanitarian effort in Africa in another year. That's bananas. You know, the rice, golden A rice, which they were making vitamin A in, preventing blindness in children, has run into lots of, which was been heavily advertised, and it's sort of the poster child for transgenic crop plants, has slowed down considerably due to regulatory hurdles. So to answer your question, to ever be a viable economy with an assortment of crop plants, we're probably talking 10 years as well, I would say, realistically.
Okay, thank you. That's a good enough ballpark. At least we've got something we can maybe put our toe in the water in, so to speak. Dr. Serber, and I'll go to Dr. Evans, or anybody on the panel that wants to answer this. You mentioned the Swiss cheese, I guess, effect of our regulatory process here in the States, but you also mentioned that we need to accelerate innovation, and those two are pretty much diametrically opposed, but anytime we regulate, we slow down the process tremendously. So the balance, I'll flip to the health side for just a minute with the CRISPR technology and the Cas9. We have the potential and the ability, I think, even now to cure single mutations, single gene mutations. But again, we have countries that are abusing this to the point of trying to manufacture the perfect child or the perfect person. Where is the middle ground here? Where do we start, I guess, is a question of how we can accelerate innovation, but at the same time, make sure that this wonderful technology doesn't fall into the hands of some nefarious people.
The quick answer from and really it's just from my point of view, is the place to start is in simpler systems. The mammalian application of these technologies is more complicated when it comes to the ethical and legal considerations. The application, the technology actually began as a natural phenomenon in bacterium, and it has been applied across the animal kingdom in very short order given its power. We at Zymergen apply those sorts of technologies in the application of microbes like bacteria from which they were originally found, for the purposes of improving them in the biocatalysis that they're used in large-scale fermentation. This makes for us, from our perspective, a nice test bed for assessing the suitability of the technology in a regime that certainly has oversight. I'm not implying for a moment it doesn't, but doesn't raise as many issues as other applications have. And as I think we learn more about the technology and its applications and grow more comfortable with it in this sector, it will be much easier and more natural to move it and expand it into other sectors, which will include human health.
All right, thank you. I'm out of time, Madam Chair.